Hey everyone, welcome back to Walkabout Talk About with Richard and Pete. Mr. Pete. This has been a while since I had my last post, because every time I go out to do a post, do a Walkabout Talk About, well, it's been raining. Well, we have a break today, and rain came early in our Florida monsoon season. And so now I got me a nice day to do a Walkabout Talk About, which is my subject. Wanted to talk about this a couple days back, but because of the weather, I couldn't. But the biggest news ever, all us Americans are talking about and thinking on, is Putin and Trump got together. Trump and Putin met up there in Alaska. Everything looked like it was a really big, well, looked like Trump and Putin had themselves a good meeting. And I'm sure those two leaders by themselves talking without all the unnecessary folk around. They were able to get right to the details of what needs to be done to have not a ceasefire. Because I know that now, after days now, that there's not going to be a ceasefire, but it's going to be a surrender in a sense. The way Trump and Putin have been talking into their, to their equal opposites in their countries, that we're going to do a end of war. In other words, if you do X, Y, and Z, we'll quit attacking. If not, we're going to keep moving on. So Trump's on it. He's like, yeah, I never wanted this to start. It would have never happened. And even Putin made that mention that if Trump was president instead of the last guy, this war would have never took off because, well, Trump and Putin could have sat down and talked about it. And they would never had a problem. Especially considering back when all this started in 2014 with the Maidan coup and Hunter Biden and some other scandalous things happening. As all these years have played out, we see exactly what their deal was against Russia, which didn't work. And Putin knows what's been going on and seems to have it all well in control for himself. But where the West is, they're not making a lot of progress there. But I digress back. Some of the investigative journalists that I follow were talking about when Putin landed in Alaska there, when they came out to shake hands on the tarmac, that, of course, Putin speaks English. And from what I understand through this investigative journalist, Pepe Escobar, that Putin said that I'm here to help you, Trump. And Trump said back to Putin, I'm here to help too. So they went off by themselves and got away from all those people that have a big interest in no war going on, no cessation of hostilities, but a war to continue. And they had themselves a private talk. Some of the things that I took away from all this, especially Putin, had a bunch of stops before he came there, and it looks like he went and stopped and talked with all the major players in the BRICS, including Xi over there in China before Putin landed in Alaska. And I'm assuming some of the things that they discussed with Trump was, like he said, Pepe Escobar said, that Putin said to Trump, I'm here to help. And I think what he's here to help Trump with is the United States fitting in with the new world order as far as the new way of buying and selling and trade is not going to be exclusively federal banking system anymore, because of the way it was used in the past. And these countries are definitely not going back to that federal system. And I know a lot of people that I've talked to over the years thought this BRICS was a joke. But this BRICS system has been coming and being organized and put together for a long time now. And I don't mean like a few months. I'm saying years and years and years. And it looks like today that they got it mostly figured out, to the point where now oil sales between these countries inside of BRICS, oil sales, just one thing, are not done in US dollars. But they're either done in gold or the country's individual currencies between countries, which makes them a little sanction proof. Because can't sanction a country's value of their currency and or cut it off if it's not in your system or your banks. And that's what's happened here. And if Putin and Trump can get a deal going where America and Russia are now superpower allies, the possibilities for the future of even our own country, I'm mainly focusing on our country because of our out-of-control national debt and all the other issues we have here, lack of industry, manufacturing, that perhaps Trump and Putin are going to sit down and work out a deal where America can now do purchases through the BRICS systems, of course with our own currency and or gold, but it's going to be a multipolar world now, not a unipolar world with one country being the leader of it all and saying this is how it works. Because in the BRICS systems, all the countries are considered equal players within that system of economics and trade. And so maybe that could be one thing we could take away from this meeting. Once the peace plan is implicated for Ukraine, maybe maybe there may be some type of adjustment in our economic system here where it'll help us as far as, especially here at home, maybe with our inflation issues and or our outrageous debt, which just crossed, if I do remember correctly, 37 trillion. And last month, actually I think it was this month, we made our first $1.2 trillion interest payment on that. But every 6 months, we're adding another trillion on there. So, seems kind of runaway. Yeah, I was kind of hoping that after all this meeting, of course, we would have a for sure end of the war there, but it doesn't look like it. Trump wants the war over, and now the other NATO countries, France, Germany, Great Britain, are saying, well, hell, we'll fucking sell you the weapons and we'll keep the war going. And Trump's like, well, I'm out of it. I hope he is out of it. We don't want him in it to begin with. That's why we freaking voted him in. Hey, what are you doing, Pete? Damn dog, you're all tangled up. Go. There you go. Alright. Yeah, so I also heard that right after that meeting, also a contract was signed and or an agreement was signed to allow one of our American oil companies back up there in Bering, up there in the Arctic Circle on the Russian side, to start pumping oil up out of the ground based on maybe it was a deal of faith between Putin and Trump, but Putin's like allowing America to take back, have a well up there, start running it again, for all these unpleasantries started to happen. 2012, 13, all that shit coming on up to 14. Sanctions and everything. So we'll see what happens. But seems like this event may or may not be over between America and Putin as far as the war goes in Ukraine. One thing's for sure, the rest of the European leaders want this war to continue, and I'm wondering why that is. Why is it they would want that thing to continue? Well, I think they've been blowing a lot of smoke up their very unhappy populations of their individual countries. Blowing a lot of smoke. Their countries are in financial dire straits. Their industries have been decimated, all by the pre-planning and the pre-engineering of America going in and, destroying their nice, cheap oil supplies and natural gas supplies that they used to get from Russia. So their GDP was destroyed, which kept America's up higher than the European Union's. And the whole time this war is going on was one of the excuses for the issues, and that the European leaders were using as their excuse for their draconian Orwellian measures they were doing against the population and stuff. But now that this war is not going to end the way that they were hoping it was going to end, in other words, Russia's destroyed, they still have these pissed off masses of their population of knowing they've been getting screwed by their leaders. Now what are they going to do? I think the war is going to be used as a distraction in the media to keep the massive protests out of everything, and to keep pumping BS that, well, Russia's still going to lose. I don't think any of those citizens over there in Europe and their European countries believe that for a second. We might have a few like we have here in America, but I don't think so. I think what we got here in America, I had a discussion with a young man at lunch at work the other day, and it seems like the depth of his knowledge on the Ukraine war is based on those 15-second news blurps with pre-written questions to a salesman or a representative out of the military-industrial complex posed as an expert to answer pre-written questions to keep the war going and to manufacture consent. And that 15-second blurb is in between 2 minutes of drug commercials. If it be Fox, CNN, MSN, NBC, CBS, ABC. And by his responses, I could tell that that was the depth of his knowledge on the whole Ukrainian war, which meant he don't know shit that's going on there, which is basically how most Americans are. You're never going to get the truth from a person that sits behind a camera and reads a teleprompter script, because that script was written by certain people who have certain interests who are trying to manufacture national consent for what they are doing by continually bombarding you with people that are on the inside that want this war to go, to motivate you emotionally to keep the war going.